Hey guys, welcome. It's Coach Becca here. Let's review what you'll need today. First off, you'll need a TheraBand, light to moderate, a PVC stick here or foam roller. Be flexible with what you have. You can make anything work today, I promise. And lastly, an appropriate kettlebell. I have a 35-pounder here. For some of you, you might want heavier, you might want lighter. I also have a 20-pounder underneath there that I'll be using. Or maybe you just have dumbbells and you're going to use those today. Just be sure it fits your goals and your ability level. Let's begin. We're really going to focus on mobility here at the beginning. So grab your ankle band, your circle band, and put it around your pinky toes. Now I like to cross one leg over the other just so my heel doesn't scrape on the floor. And all we're doing here is just pointing and flexing into the band 12 times. I'm just applying light tension here, working a little ankle mobility. I tend to start at the bottom and work my way up in any workout I do. So that means I'm starting with my feet and my feet mechanics. So we're just working on some pointing and flexing at the ankle joint here. Switch sides, again, around the pinky toes. Just cross the leg over so your heel doesn't scrape along the floor. And point and flex into the band 12 times. Now, if you don't have a band at home, you can do this with a towel. It's not quite as good. I prefer to use a band, but again, I really want you guys to be flexible and adaptive with what you have and how you're feeling today. Every time you do this workout, maybe you try to use different equipment. I'd encourage that. All right, great job on ankle mobility. Next, we're just gonna lean in towards our toes into a simple forward bend. We're holding here for about 15 seconds, stretching out our hamstrings and lower back. All these movements target muscles that are typically overused or sometimes abused in cycling, whether you're a spin class connoisseur or an elite cyclist. All of these movements will help you. All right, we're gonna move that forward bend into extension now, as you saw me demonstrate on that first one. Hold your forward bend, place your hands behind you, and then drive your hips towards the ceiling. All we're doing here is waking up the glutes and opening up the hips, combining that with that beautiful forward bend stretch. So try to take a deep breath in each position. Just open the hips, wake up the glutes, stretch out the hamstrings and the lower back. Well done. All right, next we're gonna do a tripod. Bend the knees about 90 degrees and place your hands behind you. The other hand is gonna go straight up towards the ceiling as you drive your hips. When you bring your hips to the floor, switch sides. Don't feel like you have to twist over your shoulder. Drive that hand straight to the ceiling. You'll naturally rotate through your spine, which is what this workout is great for. Okay, we're working on spine mobility here. We're activating our core and glutes. And we're opening up those chronically tight hip flexors that people that are seated or cycle regularly feel. Tight hips are a chronic problem that we have to open up and undo as cyclists and as human beings. So this is a great go-to exercise for you. Big stretches. Looking great out there. Just got to keep going for it. Especially if this is a new exercise, don't be afraid to hit pause and slow down if you need to. Well done. Great job trying those out. Next, we're going to do a glute bridge to a diagonal reach. So lay on your back with your shoulders on the floor. Lift your hips and reach across your body over the opposing shoulder. Notice how I roll completely onto the shoulder there as I reach. And we're targeting the same muscles that we were in the tripod. Our spine, your T-spine in particular. We're stretching through that. We're activating the glutes and the core and opening the hips. So all these movements are really designed to kind of undo that chronic balled up tightness that we are in when we're seated or on a bike. I bring those up a lot because most of us are working adults and cycling is a really common enjoyment pastime and recreational hobby, or for some of you it might be your profession. So it's important to take care of your body so it moves the best. Okay, on all fours. Next we have cat and cow breathing. Again, spine mobility here, really important to stretch that spine out. Okay, As somebody who typically time trials, I find this to be an especially important movement to incorporate. Somebody that is in the time trial position for up to 2.5, sometimes 5, 6, 7, hours, depending on the training ride. It's important that my spine stays mobile. Okay, so I'm encouraging you to really dive into this exercise. Inhale, arch your back, and then exhale, scoop the lower back. Really work that tailbone. All right, drive the hips up, straighten the legs out, downward dog. Raise one leg behind you. Exhale and drive that knee towards your elbows. Reach, extend the arms, drive the knee. Lean back into single leg down dog. Exhale, come into a nice driven kind of mountain climber position. So it's a single leg down dog, you could say into mountain climber, or name this however you feel appropriate. We're doing 8 per side. Again, just ramping things up gently as we still focus on mobility, but a great one for your core and for flexibility. Okay, and let's switch sides here. Hold down dog, take a deep breath, okay? Adjust anything you need to, and raise the opposing leg. Exhale as you drive the knee in. Inhale, big stretch back. Exhale, drive the knee. A great one to stretch out your lats, your hamstrings, and waking up your core. A little bit of glute action involved too, so it's just a great total body movement that, like I said, works mobility and strength as well. So that's why you're seeing this one come into our warm-up. Now we'll also be doing movements that are cycling specific, so that will help you with cycling specific movements, okay? So it's not all decompression here. We'll also be doing, cycling specific movements. So let's rest here in upward dog. Great hip stretch. Keep those shoulders pulled away from the ears. And I'm just doing a few little twists side to side, turning my chin. Just a little neck mobility there. You don't have to do those if you don't want to. Just checking into my cervical spine. All right, next we're just going to do a beautiful hip and glute stretch. If you can go down to your elbows, great. If you're somebody that's really, really tight, maybe stay up on the hands, or you could even put your hands on a bench. Again, you're going to have to meet me wherever you're at with your flexibility and your mobility, and be patient with yourself. You're going to need to, shine in some movements and be humbled in other movements, but that's what helps us grow as athletes and human beings. So great job here on this hip and glute stretch wherever you're at with it. All right, next is my favorite one, seated hip rotations. I love this movement. Slide your feet in or out based on your mobility level. Okay, so both knees are at about 90-degree angles, and your hands are just on the floor behind you. What you're doing is rotating at the hip, okay? My feet are staying in one spot. I'm just rotating through the hips to cause this movement side to side. And it's just a great one for those hips. I know how tight hips can be. I know I've already said it plenty times in this video, but it's really something I want to be intentional about taking care of today. So let's treat those hips with some love. Seated hip rotations. You can do this with your arms overhead if you have good mobility. There's lots of variations to that movement. And there's lots of variations to this movement. Today we're going to do hip cars standing. If you need to hold on to something, you may. You're going to rotate at the hip in a couple different ways, okay? So lift, rotate to the side, rotate in and out, and then return to your start position. I like to pretend I'm stepping over like a small step. So I'm rotating to the side nice and high, rotating my knee in and out, and then returning to the start. I'm doing about 5 to 6 per side. Great job. Okay, on the other side. Now, if you've never done these before, you might need to hit pause here and just kind of practice what you're doing. I'm not moving at a quick pace, but I am going through these as someone that's familiar with this exercise. And the whole point of doing a hip car is to increase the control of that joint. It stands for controlled articular rotation. You can do them at the hips and shoulder. You can do them at a lot of different ways too. So if you need to slow down on this movement, it's actually encouraged. Okay, we want to build that brain-body connection with our important joints like the hip. Oh, and this one feels great, you guys. Okay, you'll be on one knee, the other leg straight in front of you. Cross at the arms and just fold at the hips as low as you can. It's an amazing stretch, great for your hamstrings and low back. Requires a little bit of balance though, so don't be afraid to really take your time here. Looks great. It should feel great. In fact, a lot of our movements should just feel really great. All of this should just enhance how you move, whether that's, improving your mobility or improving your strength or your balance. Just hopefully you feel better after this workout than before you started. Okay, we've switched sides here. Just leaning into that gorgeous hamstring, lower back, and glute stretch. I'm really excited for our main set too, you guys. This mobility sequence is just a fantastic one. You could do this workout up to this point if you just want the mobility. The strength training portion is challenging. So we're getting ready for a great hard main set that's going to help make you a more powerful and strong cyclist, whatever discipline you specialize in. Well done. All right, we're going to do a 3-way single leg balance reach. So you're going to reach 3 ways like I just showed there. You're going to reach to your pinky toe, stand up and balance, towards your big toe, stand up and balance, and then towards your instep, stand up and balance. And just notice how you're kind of making a gorgeous diagonal line there. The back leg is straight. Okay, reach as far as you feel comfortable without losing your balance. Okay, so some of you, that might mean a different range of motion. Okay, here's what it looks like from the side so you can see my posture. 3-way single leg reach, and sometimes that's gonna happen. Squeeze that core. One cue I use a lot is crush the walnut between your glutes. So we're like really dig in with the glutes. This one works stability, but it also works mobility. So we're working stability at the ankles, knees, and hips, but we're also working some hip mobility. We're working and strengthening all the hamstring groups. Let's switch sides here. You might feel some of those hamstring muscles, which was made up of 4 different muscles, your hamstring group. You might feel some of those are more tight or perhaps weaker than others. So you might really, excel maybe at the outside reach, but you really struggle with the reach inside. So just kind of start plugging into your body and learning where you're weak and where you're strong. That's such an advantage for you as an athlete and as a human being, just to know your body intimately that way. So think about which pattern you're great at and which pattern here you're maybe struggling with. Here's a side view for you. 3-way single leg reach. Stability, mobility, big on the hamstrings. Looking great out there, guys. Even if you lose your balance occasionally, don't get frustrated. Working on balance and mobility and flexibility is something we have to be intentional about as we build strength. All right, next we're gonna grab our band. We're slowly ramping things up here as we head into the main set. Place that band. I always go right above my tube socks, so just above the ankles. Big step, small step. You always want tension in the band. I've got soft knees and hips, which I'll show you in a minute, and I'm just using the space I have. If you've got more space, you can take more steps to the left or right. Here's how my hips look. You can see the soft knees and hips here. Not in a squat position, hi. But I am in a sort of a soft knee, soft hip kind of angle there. I'm not standing directly stock straight. We're just doing this for 60 seconds. So I'm taking about 3 to 5 steps each direction. Use the space that you have. Maybe you have a really small space and you can only take 1 step at a time. That's just fine. Just remember to go big step, small step, so there's always tension in the band. This is good lateral movement, something we don't get on the bike really at all. So I want to be intentional about waking up some of those quiet glute muscles that sometimes get forgotten about when we're cycling. And strong glutes are really, really important for cyclists and for humans in general. Good job. You can take that band off. Hopefully you're feeling awake and alive through the glutes there. All right, and this is a movement screen sequence that I really enjoy doing with all my athletes. It's the overhead squat. So take your PVC pipe or your foam roller and place it over your head. Feet just outside the shoulders with toes slightly rotated out. You're gonna try to keep that stick or foam roller directly over the back of your head as you squat as low as you can. This should be pain-free. And I actually am so thrilled that I was able to review and assess myself here. So I don't claim to be a perfect person in terms of mobility. I am a, endurance athlete that trains a lot and goes through different seasons of mobility. So here I'm able to see where my posture is at, where my hip, spine, and shoulder mobility is at. And that's what this exercise is great for. It's a total body movement because you have the weight overhead. And obviously you're going into that squat movement. It requires a tight diaphragm. So it's one of my favorite exercises. And it's a great lead into the next one, which is a trunk squat. Cross the arms over the shoulders and go down into a partial squat. You're gonna hold here. This is a great stability exercise that's awesome for your quads. How could you not love this exercise? Now, as a cyclist, you're, very in touch with your quads and your single leg ability. Obviously, you're pushing down on one side as you're pulling up on the other. So it's important to train single leg work and single leg stability because it's pretty sport specific for cyclists. Good. Let's switch sides. It's a 30-second hold. Here's what it looks like from the side. Okay, so trunk position. So my arms are crossed over, so I have great posture. Okay, and I'm going to go down as low as I feel like I can. A partial squat. It's pretty hard to get to parallel here, but for those of you that have excellent body control, you might be able to go lower than what I'm demonstrating. A great one to develop that connection again between the hip and knee joint. You want a good relationship there. You don't want to have unhealthy chronic movements where we're, struggling to control the knee joint at the hip. A little wordy there, but a lot of you know what I mean on that, especially as cyclists who are constantly squeezing top tubes, etc. All right, time for the main set, guys. Let's get serious. Let's get excited. We're doing deadlifts, 4 sets of 12. I'm going to show 2 rounds with my kettlebell and a round if you have a barbell at home, and rounds with dumbbells. All right, hinge at the hips, pull the shoulders down. And all we're doing is driving. We're working on hip extension here. So we're strengthening the hamstrings and glutes, but the quads come into the picture as well, especially at the top when our joints are stacked, shoulders, hips over knees. We're just hinging at the hips, pushing our hips back towards an imaginary wall behind us. Okay, inhale as you lower down in general, exhale as you stand up. That's the breathing style that I'm most accustomed to. All right, and we're relaxing for 30 seconds in between. Now, I'm obviously demonstrating with a kettlebell. I'll show you from the front as well, but I'll also demonstrate in case you've got a barbell at home and you want to use that, or if you're just using appropriate dumbbells. So you might want to fast forward if this is your first time and you want cues on that. Fast forward and follow along there. Otherwise, you might just choose to use the kettlebell like me for all 4 rounds. Either way, we're getting 4 sets of 12 in. Okay, so here you can see that great hip hinge from another angle. That's all a deadlift is. It's hinging at the hips. Stretch the hamstrings, squeeze the glutes. Engage the core. A great one that could play if you're a track cyclist. Your starts come into play here. But it's also important just to develop your hamstring group as part of a healthy pedal stroke. You want to be pulling up on those pedals, dancing on the pedals, just as much as you're pushing down for an equal and smooth pedal stroke. Okay, so for our 3rd round, I'm going to demonstrate with the PVC stick. Again, you're welcome to continue using the kettlebell. The movements are the same. Okay, so here, if you're starting from a barbell position, here we go, up for 1. And again, it's really the same hip mechanics, just different equipment. And I want you to use what you have at home. Perhaps you'd like to use something different that's uncommon, but hey, I'm up for anything today. So maybe you wanted to do a warm-up set with the kettlebell and now you're ready for your barbell for the last 2. Whatever it is, make it about you. Maybe 12 reps is too much for the cycle that you're in. You can add a heavier weight and go to 6 to 8. That's fine. 4 sets of 12 on 30 seconds rest is definitely a set that will build some strength, but also maintain and build your muscular endurance, especially on 30 seconds rest. So it'll move the fitness needle while enhancing your endurance. So that's why I usually choose that as somebody that is an endurance cyclist. I want to build strength, but I also want to maintain that ability to be resilient in later reps, be resilient in my endurance. Here's what it would look like with dumbbells. Notice that I lifted from the bench in case you're using heavy weight. That's a great way to protect your lower back leading into a set. Now with the dumbbells, sometimes people prefer a little bit higher of a hip position or an RDL, a Romanian deadlift. The hip mechanics, that's up to you. Wherever you feel it most, that's your MO. The higher you keep the hips, the more hamstring based it's going to be. The more you drop the hips into that deeper deadlift, more traditional deadlift, the more you're going to bring your glutes and quads into the picture. So do what works for you guys. That's something I'm really stressing as I grow as a personal trainer, weightlifting coach, and athlete. I'm going into my 11th year as a fitness coach. And I just love individualizing things as much as possible. So I invite you to do that, since I'm not able to meet you in your home or your gym and instruct you on what option might be best for you. All right, this next one you may do up to 3 ways, and you can try all 3 ways if you want, just for a lot of variety in your workout. This is a rear foot elevated lunge. I'm choosing the overhead position first. This is a light, more body weight focused version. So if you're somebody that struggles with good posture, I invite you to start here first. Taking care of posture, notice how that overhead position really helps me focus on that without adding a bunch of weight and further enhancing dysfunction. So this is a great one to start with. It's an easy one to think about stacking your joints on. Muscular wise, this targets your butt and quads, okay? And it's a great one for cyclists because you can tell, obviously, you're on one leg, so it's good stability work, and it kind of replicates that pedal stroke movement where you're, pushing on one side and pulling on the other in general. Okay, now you can, if you'd like to, make this harder by grabbing a dumbbell or kettlebell. But if you like working on your posture, just stick with that overhead PVC pipe. So let me show you how to use a kettlebell. I like to do these ones offset, but you could do them ipsilateral if you like, instead of contralateral loading, which just means same side or opposite side. Okay, so this really requires a lot of core strength since weight's only on one side, which is what I like. I like a lot of offset and single leg type things. Just great core work, great coordination, great balance work. So I'm using my 20-pound kettlebell here for this one. And as I mentioned before, we're doing sets of 8 per side. Switching sides, moving the watch face so I don't crack the watch. So if you have an Apple Watch or a Garmin, make sure you turn that inside. Again, a great one for stacking the joints, great one to do barefoot, helps with the, barefoot mechanics, working those proprioceptive muscles on the bottom of the feet. Of course, you can't do this with shoes as well. Squeezing that core, great job. Make sure you're always entering and exiting the movement in a way that's not going to injure you. Okay, and last but not least, you could grab a dumbbell. You could grab 2, but that would take a little bit of that core activation out of the picture with the weight being offset, but it would make it heavier. So if you're in a loading phase, perhaps you grab 2 weights. So again, you could use the PVC stick overhead, a kettlebell at the shoulder, or dumbbells also at the shoulder, or here in this position. There's really just tons of options, guys. You could do this with your foot in a TRX, with your foot on a physio ball. Really make this your own. I want you to shine in it, and I've just chosen, because of the nature of what I'd like to focus on today, that we're doing single sets instead of circuits or supersets. So we're really focusing on a muscle group. Deadlifts with hamstrings and glutes. This one's definitely quads and glutes. So we're kind of exhausting with appropriate rest, one muscle group at a time. And we're going to keep that pattern for a little while. All right, so it was great work on the quads and glutes for 3 rounds, 8 per side, different variations there. Gonna pick up the area here, and now we're gonna focus on the hamstrings and glutes again for a couple rounds. We're gonna do 2 rounds of 12 glute bridges into a 12-second iso hold. Okay, and we're not gonna take any breaks in between. So 12 hip ups, feet elevated, toes towards the sky. Pretty simple here. You don't have to do it feet elevated, but it's more challenging. Great one for, again, just working hip extension, which is important in getting up and getting out of the saddle, whether that's for starts or just an explosive sprint. And now we're holding for 12 seconds. This is going to develop some endurance in the core and the glutes. Try to breathe evenly through this. It's harder than it looks. At least for me. I'm feeling it the next day, that's for sure. All right, and this is round 2 now. 12 bridges into a 12-second hold. And maybe that hold is a great time where you can visualize an upcoming race. I know I'm filming this during the COVID-19 pandemic, so there's not a lot on the boards for races, but maybe you can visualize when you'll race again during this movement sequence. It's simple, it's body weight. It can allow you to connect with your body. Great time for some visualization here. Well done. Great job on that. All right, up next, I'm going to have you move your bench to a position where you can do step-ups on it. So I moved mine so I wouldn't hit my head on my ceiling. I have hit my head on that lamp that you see several times. So we are going to do a step-up to balance. We're going to do 2 sets of 8 per side. You can use a dumbbell or a kettlebell. I'm going to use a kettlebell for this set. Use what you have. Use no weight if you're really struggling with your balance. Squeeze that core. I'm doing mine offset again so that my core has to work to balance that weight on my right side while I'm stepping up with my left foot. Notice when I come down, I'm not just letting gravity pull me down. I'm using my hip flexors to slowly go to the ground, touch my toe, and stand back up. Okay, all while keeping that kettlebell pinned right at my collarbone. So this one's just a great movement for cyclists. If you're a cyclist, you can understand and make that connection here. Switch sides. So really focus on that. A lot of times we're doing that heavy step down with heavy weights, which there's a time and a place for that. But I really enjoy the control in the hips that just, dipping my back toe in cold water. I'm not pushing off that toe at all. My right quad has to do all the work when I'm not just resting flat-footed at the bottom. And my very earliest strength coach, Brett Homers, wherever you're at in the world, you taught me that, and I thank you for that. That's really been important for me as I do this exercise in all phases and all sports. Using that control through the hip, touching down, standing back up. Again, there's a time and a place for a heavy step up, but I try not to let gravity win on this one. Personally, that's just the way I like to do it. Let's switch sides. We're going back to the original leg. That leg was mostly resting while the other side worked. So that's why you'll notice that there's very little rest here. 2 sets of 8 per side. You can use a little bit heavier of a weight, but not one that's going to allow you to fall to the ground, let gravity win and let you be lazy. I want you to be strong and coordinated on these. Using an appropriate weight that fits your goals, that allows you to do this movement with intention. Eight per side. Looking strong out there, guys. Squeeze that core. Awesome work. And we're going to switch sides here. These will get your heart rate up a bit. You could also advance this exercise by going into an overhead press at the top here if you so choose. Again, a great one for balance. Obviously, we're stepping up to balance. It's a single leg exercise. Great for your quads and butt. Great for your coordination. I like the offset weight because it's great for your core. I like doing these with the weight on the same side as well, just for different loading, just like what we did on the rear foot elevated lunge. Next time you do this, maybe you'll try it with the weight on the same side that you step up. It's great to try everything at least once, right? Okay, guys, awesome job on that. We're going to work on some power movements next. We're going to do a hamstring-dominated power movement and a quad-dominated power movement. So I'm going to set up my chair that prepares me for that. So we're going to do, like I said, one of each. One that's good for the backs of the legs, one that's good for the front of the legs. So if you've never done kettlebell swings before, they're a great exercise. They're great for building power. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to start off with a form movement called a hike pass, which really just helps you understand where the kettlebell should go upon your first pull. Okay, so to get set up, you're going to want to take a step behind the kettlebell, usually about a foot behind. So there's my little measurement trick. I'm going to hinge at the hips. Notice that my hips line up with my shoulders there. And I'm just going to pull that kettlebell back, activating my triceps. My wrists are going directly to the insides of my thighs. So it's just a good target point. That bell goes right behind my butt. It's hitting an imaginary wall behind me, if you will. Okay, now we're going to practice entering and exiting a set of swings. So we're just going to do one swing. You'll pull, you'll push, and you'll come directly back down. That way you understand how to exit a set of swings without just dropping the kettlebell. So the kettlebell is kind of making just this pendulum up, pull it back to the hips and down. You'll always bring the kettlebell back between your hips, under your butt, but when you exit a set. A lot of times when people are doing kettlebell swings, they just set it directly on the ground on the last swing, and that can be bad for your back. So that's a really nice movement prep buildup. Now, if you're not comfortable with those two movements, just practice the hike pass and doing single sets of swings before moving on. If you've done kettlebell swings before, I want you to join me for this set of 3 sets of 10 kettlebell swings with 30 seconds rest. Use a weight that's appropriate for you. Here we go. Remember that it's all pushing from the hips. I prefer a soft elbow so that I don't let my arms take over. Your arms really aren't active in a kettlebell swing except for when you're bringing that kettlebell under your butt. That's where you can maybe think of the cue, tighten your triceps. But in general, this is a glute-powered movement, glute and hamstrings. So think of it like a deadlift. Again, if you're not comfortable doing kettlebell swings, don't do them. Just work on the hike pass, and when you're ready, try sets of single bell swings. 30 seconds rest. So choose a weight that's appropriate for that rest to work ratio. If that seems like a high volume and a short rest, choose a more fitness weighted bell. If you want to go heavy, just pause the video and rest closer to 90 seconds. You can really make this your own here. One of the best cues I learned when I was learning kettlebell swings from an RKC instructor was to attack the zipper. So you want that kettlebell going right towards your crotch, as scary as that might sound, not towards your knees. So think about bringing your wrists, like you did in the hike pass, directly towards your zipper, or bringing your wrists to the top of your thighs. You should be able to make that kind of contact. You should feel the insides of your thighs there. Again, 30 seconds rest. If you need to, think about breathing. You may count your reps out loud. You should be exhaling in general as you push the bell forward. Based on if you like certain styles of kettlebell training, they might call for the opposite of that, and I acknowledge that. That's fine. Do what works for you as long as you breathe. We want you to breathe during this set at the time that you feel is appropriate. Really squeeze those glutes. This is a great one to develop power. It's a great metabolic exercise. It's a great exercise for cyclists. Fantastic work. Way to get the heart rate up there and work hard. We're going to put that bell away, and I believe we're done with the bells for the day. Now we're going to work on the quads a little bit. We're going to do chair jumps from stop. So another one that's great for getting out of the saddle, or if you're somebody that has to work on starts a lot, this is a great one to work on that dead stop to a explosive type of movement. And my little audience member, Brownlee, here is going to be my company. So I'm just sitting in a chair, hips at 90 degrees. I'm going to jump up, explode as high as I can. I like to get my arms involved. If that's not something that you feel like you should be doing, then don't do that. Just keep it all lower body. But the main thing here is that I'm going from a dead stop up to an explosive start, landing softly. I'm pushing from my heels to my toes and then landing softly. So once you explode up, you're just thinking about coming down on a soft landing. I always want you starting from a dead stop, at least for today. So we're going to get 20 seconds rest in between. All of your energy goes into that initial parallel position, into the explosive streamlined position. So all the power happens right here, and then the rest is resting. So you want to think about recruiting all your muscle fibers to be ready to go when you decide. So this is one thing that can help with, is just that acute awareness of everything's going to contract right now, like you're a rubber band exploding. You're doing great. Brownlee says you're doing great. I say you're doing great. A little different from a traditional squat jump. This just works something a little different. Squat jumps are great too. So if you want to just do something a little bit more rapid fire, that's fine. I'm thinking a lot of my track cyclist buddies out there. I wanted to include this one for you. Great job. All right, and then we're going to finish with a little bit of an endurance set. I wanted to get the power movements done before we did this. So Good strength training with an infusion of power. It wasn't a ton of power training. I wouldn't call this a power workout. There's just a little pop or exclamation point at the end. And now we're going to work on a little bit of endurance stuff. So this is kind of just a fun challenge at the end. You can use light or heavy weight based on where you're at with your training cycle. All right, so we're going to do wall glides. I'm just in a wall sit position, and I'm working a little shoulder mobility. I know as cyclists, we don't really need to train our upper body a ton. We do need to train it in a functional way, of course. But this is a great way to work on just your posture and your shoulder blades. So if you're up against a wall, you're just basically sliding the backs of your knuckles up into a streamline just to work on some shoulder mobility. I know we need to work on that as cyclists, and it's hard to make time for that because we're so focused on legs. But this is a great way to do both. In a wall sit, working mobility. So you're going to do 12 of those wall glides. I don't have a wall to glide on, so I'm just doing kind of what I can, just a streamline. So that's fine. Make it work with what you have. Okay, and now I'm going to do 10 front squats. I'm using my 20-pound bell instead of my 35-pound bell because I want to work on endurance. It's not a lot of rest. Just maybe, 10 seconds rest from the wall sit to this. And my legs are already pretty tired from doing some explosive work and a pretty decent main set. So just a smooth weighted front squat. You could do this body weight. You could do this with heavy weight, infusing more rest and dropping the reps. There's really a lot of room in this workout to be changed based on your cycle, when you're planning to peak, etc. So back to our wall sit with shoulder mobility. Again, just focus on your shoulder blades. Feel those shoulder blades flaring out and then pulling back in. Thinking about opening your chest. Any cyclist is going to be bent over on their bars, whether they're on time trial bars, whether they're on drops on a road bike or a track bike. It's just not a great anatomical position, if I'm being honest. It's not great for your posture. So you've got to be intentional about at least adding some spine work in, some shoulder mobility, and a little bit of upper body training. Whether you've been cycling for a long time and you know what those exercises should be for you, or whether you're brand new at it, just trust me when I say we need to infuse spine and shoulder mobility, and I encourage you to do that regularly. All right, back to our 10 front squats. Nothing too crazy, hitting parallel here, elbows to knees. If you can go below parallel, if you aren't at a place where you can even hit parallel, wherever you're at, use weight, don't use weight, work at a depth that works for your body. I don't have any rules on that. And in fact, I think we need to get away from that as a fitness culture. If you can hit parallel, good for you. If you can go below parallel and that's a good thing for you today, do it. If you're tight and you can't hit parallel, let's work on that hip mobility and don't beat yourself up about it. You know what I mean? Let's just all love our bodies a little bit more. All right, last round here. That's my soapbox for the day. And of course, guys, I look forward to reading your comments, whether that's on social media and you shoot me a message based on enjoying this, or if you're one of my athletes doing this, writing in Training Peaks after this, or a YouTube follower leaving a note in the comments. I love seeing that. That's really helping me as a coach, as somebody that sees themselves as a leader in terms of having resources for an industry. I want to hear what works for you guys. I want to hear something. If there's some controversies you're not sure of, let's talk about it. I have an open door policy with all my athletes, with all my followers, and with all my friends. And I hope we can keep that an open environment today. And I just want to say thank you for doing this workout. Thank you for being open to my style of training. And I affirm you for doing this workout, and I validate your efforts today. Let's finish strong with these last 10 front squats. We do have a core circuit to go through, so mentally prepare for that. A lot of core stability work coming at you. But once these legs are done, I'm excited to work on that with you. Nice smooth breathing here. In general, I like to inhale, lower down, exhale as I stand. All right, now we're really done with the weights, promise. You do need your band for the plank circuit. You can try the first round with the band, and if it's like, I'm not doing this very well, do the second round without the band, or maybe immediately, look, my core, it's not that strong right now, I should do this without a band. You can do all these movements without a band. All right, so we're gonna do a full plank with alternating leg races. So this is a great one that fires up your glutes while working your plank. and it's also good for your core stability. The band just makes it harder. It's forcing your hamstrings and butt muscles to do something other than just holding and supporting you in a plank, which it also has to do. So it's just a really good one. I love this one. It's also a good hip extension exercise, so it's lengthening those hip flexors instead of tightening them up more, which I find to be really important for cyclists, to make sure that we're kind of constantly undoing some of the work that we do on the bike in terms of all that hip flexor work. I mean that in the loving way, you know that. Okay, bring the band around your wrists. And now we're gonna do a lateral plank walk with the band. So this one's just good for getting the shoulders going a little bit. Good for mobility there. I like to work on the shoulders a little bit. It's also a good lateral movement, which y'all know we never get on the bike. So lateral movement in the shoulders and in the feet. You might try this with the band around your ankles instead. It's a great variation. So you could do this either way. Just wanted to get the upper body involved a little bit in our core segment. Try to keep those hips flat. Good work. We're just doing 30 seconds, so you could choose to do just one step at a time instead of 3 steps too. All right, place the band around the pinky toes. A dead bug, another great one for core coordination that lengthens those hip flexors instead of tightens them. So again, I affirm needing strong hip flexors, but I want to get away from chronically tight hip flexors as cyclists and human beings. I'll say it for probably the 90th time today. So this one's great for core stability and core coordination. You don't have to do it with the band. I just appreciate the bonus activation and stability it provides. You can do this with a foam roller. You can do this with a physio ball. You can do this body weight. You can do this same arm, same leg, and opposite arm, opposite leg. There's lots of variations for the dead bug. All right, up last, walk the plank. Basically, all you're gonna do is take baby steps out until you can't extend anymore and then walk your hands back in. You might not make it out very far, and that's fine. This should be a pain-free movement, so only work in a range of motion that's pain-free for you. It's just a great, again, core stability exercise. I talk about core stability a lot. That's the ability of your core to be stable and strong and support you against external pressures, which I find is really important for cyclists, especially road cyclists that are kind of always bumping and pushing. You've got to really be able to brace and bear down and have a stable core as like the foundation of your movements to support you. So that's why all this stuff is kind of geared towards those kind of interactions. So a stable core that's going to function in all planes of movement. It's going to be coordinated, all that good stuff. So we're back to those leg races with the band. If you guys have questions on that, let me know. If you have exercises that you find are helpful for building that as a cyclist, let me know. Share the love there. These aren't the only exercises you can do, right? To work on those things. They're just the ones I found to be the most beneficial with the previous exercises that we've done so far today. Great job on the plank with leg raises. Let's do that lateral plank walk next. You guys are doing great. It's a long workout. 50 minutes together. It's good stuff. Thanks for sticking with me. Again, if you want to do this without the band, you can. If you want to do this one step at a time, you can. Think about bracing that core. Make that connection. Where would this exercise translate for you as a cyclist? Where, you could say that about any of these exercises. What particular part of a cycling race or even a spin class, if you're just somebody that does spin classes and found this workout, you know what I mean? Make this about you and translate that to everyday life and sport. How will this help you as a human being? How will this help you as an athlete? And it should fit both categories. A more functional human is a more functional athlete and vice versa. The dead bug. I love this one. Think about your breathing with it. Think about extending and contracting at the same time. Your body's working together now. Great work. And the gorgeous walk the plank to finish out our workout. Couldn't end it any other way. Baby steps out. Maybe each time you do this, you work a little bit further. It's kind of like the original ab dolly in my way. This is a great extension exercise, great for your core. It's stressful, so if you have lower back pains, I recommend just holding a plank while we do this. You got to be smart about where your body's at, and, we want to keep that body pain-free all the time. Pain-free is the way to be. Awesome. I'm super pumped about this workout. I'm so glad you did this. Let's just finish with some stretching. You can foam roll if you'd like. We're going to start with just a basic hip stretch. Opening up those hips, like I've said, chronically tight. Let's take care of that. I like to add in a little oblique stretch there. Generally, a static stretch you want to hold for about 15 seconds. Mixed schools of thought on static stretching. Mixed schools of thought on doing it before and after workouts. If it works for you, do it. If it doesn't, don't do it. I find that a good mix of dynamic stretching and mobility prior to a workout combined with stretching and dynamic mobility or foam rolling after a workout is the best for me. Knock on wood. I am knocking on wood as I'm doing this quad stretch. I have been able to stay fairly injury-free in my endurance career. I was able to stay injury-free throughout college. I was a kinesiology major, so I understood the human body. I had to have one surgery based on just a misshaped meniscus when I was, that's something I was born with, so I had to have surgery on that. But other than that, I've been able to stay relatively injury-free, and I think it's because I do stuff like this. So I invite you to join me on that. I want you to be on that injury-free train with me. This hamstring walk feels great. Opens up the hammies, the lower back. Nice alternated dynamic stretch here. Side lunge to twist. Again, just stretching out the spine again, getting a little rotation in. Just really gentle. See how I'm just doing this really gently. Stretching out those adductors a little bit. Cycling really can be a contact sport. I joke it's the closest I can get back to my good old college soccer days. So it's good to be aware that, you might make contact with somebody when you're cycling, depending on the discipline that you do. Obviously, as a time trialist, that's very uncommon. But as somebody that dabbles in road and track cycling, you got to be tough. You got to be ready for anything. So hopefully this workout prepares you for that. All right, 1, 2, 3 touches. You're going to touch what feels like a good stretch, move to a better stretch, and with the best stretch. Try not to bounce on this or force a stretch that is inappropriate for you. You don't want to force any stretching. Just do what your body's allowing you to do here. Great one for the low back, your butt, your hammies. A little energizing here at the end. Fantastic. Guys, thanks for joining me today. Hope to see you again soon. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all my recent videos, and visit www.kawakocoaching.com for recipes, wellness blogs, and more. Thanks.